Last week, we had the premiere of the new Disney animated series, The Bad Batch, which is a spinoff of the Clone Wars, the animated series. And so I have some thoughts. I watched the first couple episodes, and I'm going to answer a few questions that I've been asked. So, welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
Alright, so I'm back. And as per usual, I took most of last week off because whenever the show's off, I usually say, I'm gonna work a little bit harder. I'm gonna do a little bit something extra while the show's off, and then all of a sudden, I never do. I just get tired. When all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, oh my god, I haven't taken a break in forever. So I decided to take most of the week off. I did do my review of Demon Slayer, the movie, which you can check out. I believe it's my previous video. And there was some interesting stuff to talk about. One of those things that at least that caught my attention was the premiere of the new Disney animated TV show, The Bad Batch. And I'll get into that in a second, but let me just clear off this week really quickly. I decided this week things are going to be a little bit different. I'm only going to stream 2 days a week now. I'm going to do Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm aiming for 2 p.m. Why am I only doing 2 days a week? Honestly, I'm just following some professional advice that I got, and it's like, all right, okay, so I'll give it a shot. Doesn't hurt to test it out for a couple of weeks. And so most of the things this week will be pre-recorded. Like today, pre-recorded. So if you want to join me in the chat or something in the live stream, it's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays at Super Dario World on YouTube and on Twitch. Like I said, at 2 p.m.-ish if you want to join me. I'll see if I'll change that later. I don't know. I have issues with doing pre-recorded and with doing when you're live, you're just on. If you mess up, you mess up. You don't care. When you're pre-recording stuff, you're like, I gotta fix that. But sometimes you don't have the time for it or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, testing stuff out. Also, I got a busy week, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit here about. Before I get into it, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram and at Super Dario World. See stuff like that makes me want to edit it out, but no, you can't do it. I gotta save time here. Anyway, so yeah, you can find me there, comments, and like I said, Tuesday and Thursday I will be doing the live stream at 2-ish. I think I can do it at 2 p.m. Hopefully I'll make it work. Anyway, let's get into this. So I'm gonna talking about pretty much the entire show about the Bad Batch. So usually, I'm kind of liking this thing that I do, that my first episode of the week is just a review of something, and I give you the summary of whatever happened in that previous episode. So this show might be it. I don't know. It depends if it actually picks up or becomes, special in a certain way. But overall, the show's fun. If you watch the Clone Wars, the animated series, and you watch specifically the final season, which I reviewed and I thought was great, then it's a very similar feeling, except you don't get the main characters from the Star Wars universe. You don't get the Anakin from the Clone Wars. You don't get the Obi-Wan. But the Bad Batch is a fun group. So to answer the question that I've been asked the most about the show, do I need to watch the Clone Wars in order to understand the show? The answer, to me, it's not really. The show picks up where after it picks up pretty much at the same spot where the Clone Wars ends, and that's with the execution of Order 66. Now, for those of you who don't know what Order 66 is, or I guess who don't even know what the Clone Wars is, all right, or you don't even know what Star Wars, you know what? I can only help you so much. I can't help you so. In the Star Wars universe, you got the 3 prequel movies, and in the 3rd prequel movie, spoiler alert, I guess, for those of you who've been living under a rock and haven't seen it, a certain order is given that causes the betrayal of the clone soldiers to the Jedi Order. That's as vaguest as I can say it. Anyway, and so, I mean, it's been 20 years, right? I think that by now, anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, Order 66 basically activates a chip inside the clones' brains, and they, just start going, they just start killing off all the Jedi. So this show begins at the execution of Order 66. And so for those of you who don't know, the Bad Batch is a group of clones. They are an elite squad of clones, they have enhanced capabilities. Now, since they are enhanced, it appears that the chips do not affect them the same way that the rest of the clones are affected. So this is a period of time that we know a little bit about, but it's not really ever shown in the movie. So the show takes place between the end of Revenge of the Sith, which is episode 3, and A New Hope, which is episode 4. So that's a period of time where Disney has done a good job with showing us with Star Wars Rebels. We get to learn a little bit there. There's another show that came out. I forget the name. What's the name of the? I don't know. I'll remember eventually as I'm talking probably. And we've had a few video games, Jedi Fallen Order. It also takes place in that particular time period, and it's interesting. There's fun stuff that's happened there, and there's a lot of great characters that were set up with the prequel movies. So I guess I never really answered the question. To answer the question, do you need to watch the Clone Wars in order to understand the Bad Batch? No, it will help a lot. And the reason why I say no is because in the first episode, in the pilot, they do a good enough job at explaining to you. Well, they do a really good job at explaining to you who each character is. So the 5 members of the squad, you immediately understand who they are and their roles within the squad. Backstory is nothing too crazy. If you know anything about Star Wars and you've seen the prequels, you're good. You're like, all right, okay, so they're clones. Oh, they're enhanced clones? Okay, cool. And they're kind of weirdos? I could see that with my own eyes. Anyway, so the backstory is not something that's too complicated, but and so you don't really need to watch the show. Now, would it help? Definitely. And it's a fun show, so I recommend it. At least the final season helps a lot because the final season is where you get introduced to the Bad Batch. But again, it's not a must. It's not 100% necessary. It would make things easier for you. And like I said, I recommend it, but you don't need it. It's not a necessity. And it helps because certain characters from the series do show up and certain characters from the movie show up. Like, for example, Forrest, in the first episode, Forrest Whitaker's character from Rogue One makes an appearance. And if you don't know who he is, you're going to be like, who the fuck is this? But his role there is not gigantic and they explain it enough. So I'm assuming that's going to be happening throughout the show because, again, Star Wars, big universe, big, massive universe. And they have a lot of characters already built into it. So it helps. Not a necessity so far. And so with that question answered, is with your time, is the show fun? Yeah, if you want, like I said, if you watch the first part of the last season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, you're introduced to these characters, and they're likable. They're a likable bunch of misfits. They have a lot of issues, and so it's a fun group to be around. And it's I think I talked about this at the time when I did my review of the show. It's like, I'm not sure why they introduced these characters here, but I would not be surprised if they did a spin-off of them. And lo and behold, they did. So, and like I said, if I'm going to do a spin-off of characters, these were a bunch of characters to pick. And they're setting them up in a very interesting period of time where we don't know much about that particular period of time. Now, the period of time is not enough. They actually have to put us in an interesting situation. So, like I said, Star Wars Rebels, you get to see the rise of the Rebels. And so that's interesting to watch in itself because you're like, oh, well, what the hell's happening here? We know a lot. We know about the Rebel Alliance, but we don't know how it started. We don't know how it grew and all that stuff. And so that's something that we're going to get to see here. I don't know if it's what we're going to get to see here. So, because we don't know exactly where the show is going yet. The first episode, I usually, I do a breakdown of everything, but I think I can break down the first episode pretty quickly. It's, they introduce the characters. They show you that there's politic changes in Kamino. For those of you who don't know where Kamino is the planet where they create all the clones, and where the facility is that they create all the clones. And so there's with the regime change, with the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire, let's just say the Empire doesn't see much use in spending their resources in creating a clone army, and they're just gonna be like, we'll just start recruiting people and we'll just make stormtroopers. So instead of clone troopers, we'll make stormtroopers and save half of the budget. And so that's a perfect example of how there's an expression in Spanish, and it goes "lo barato sale caro," which basically means the cheap stuff ends up being more expensive. And so, for those of you who've seen how useless the stormtroopers are, maybe this starts to explain why. And it's because they decided to cheap out. You had an elite military force, the clones, and you cheaped out. So there you go. You know, you get what you fucking pay for. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, I guess. But so there's a regime change, and the regime change, we actually get a cameo from Grand Moff Tarkin, and he doesn't like clones, and so he's like, I'm gonna put these stormtroopers to the test. I'm sorry, these stormtroopers, the Squad 99, which is the Bad Batch, to the test, and I'm gonna test their loyalty. Now, in this particular test of loyalty, we learned that the enhancements did not activate the particular loyalty that was activated with Order 99. They refused a particular order, which includes killing humans. Now, this is a squad that's only really killed droids, and so now killing humans feels weird to them. They don't really want to do it, and so basically they're on the outs, and they leave Camino. So that would be almost the easiest way of explaining the first episode, except they introduce a new character here, and that is the character of Omega. Now, Omega is a bit of a mystery in certain ways, and I'm not going to get too much into her because there's a bit of a surprise there. But basically, Omega is in Camino as well, and she decides that she wants to go with the Bad Batch because they're cool dudes, and for other reasons as well. And so it's a little girl who decides to join the Bad Batch in their escape. However, unfortunately for the Bad Batch, before they're trying to escape, Grand Moff Tarkin basically upgrades the chip in one of the Bad Batch, and one of their own ends up betraying them. Basically that's it. So they lose one, but they gain one, and so that's the first episode. That's the easiest way I can say it, and limiting the spoilers in a way. Maybe, like I said, if the show picks up a little bit more, I might do a fuller breakdown, but so far I think that's fair. Anyway, so that's the first episode. The second episode consists of basically it's a classic episode of the main character who's a gruff, grumpy older man who does not want to take care of a kid. Come to terms with, all right, I'm responsible for this kid and whatever. So that's the second episode, and that it's where it's determined. All right, she's staying. So the first one is, okay, we kind of have to take her for emergency reasons. The second one is, all right, we've decided you're a part of the crew. So that's episode 1 and 2 in a nutshell. Like I said, you can watch them. I'm not gonna get too much into the story because I'd rather you watch it. Episode 3, I feel like by that point you kind of seen the show, and if you're gonna watch a review of episode 3, it's because you watched the show. Anyway, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that, but we'll see. Anyway, so the characters are fine. The key here is definitely Omega. So the story is not a new story, like the old, like I said, the soldier who has the strong man has to end up taking care of a kid. We've seen that many times before. Let's see, an easy example in Star Wars would be maybe The Mandalorian just recently came out. We saw that in Logan. We saw that in there's a whole bunch of, even recently Yasuke that I saw on Netflix. So it's not a new story, but there's a few differences here from other stuff. There's something about the innocence of a child that I guess translates well with the harshness and realism of a soldier, and it mixes up well. And so it's fun. The Bad Batch is particularly fun because they're a bunch of wild weirdos, and all their personalities are enhanced for their particular set of skills. And then all of a sudden you get a kid in there who's seeing things for the first time as a kid and who interacts well with them, and she's actually excited to do a bunch of stuff there. Usually the kids are a complication. Here it's, in a way, she's a net benefit, or she makes things fun and it's funny. Maybe it's because the childish show at heart, because it's still an animated show. So that probably helps. Usually when it's the examples that I put in, The Mandalorian is not really a kids show. The Logan was definitely not a kids show, and so Yasuke is definitely not a kids show. So maybe that helps, but I don't know. It's a fun interaction. So the characters are fun. I'm finding I'm having a really tough time not jumping into examples because it's rough and I don't want to do spoilers. But uh, like I said, fun watch. It's been enjoyable so far. I just don't know if it's going to add anything to the Star Wars lore that is must watch for the future. I think it has to, because the dude who created the show is the same guy who created the Clone Wars, is the same guy who created the Mandalorian, and now there's a buttload of new shows based off the Star Wars universe. And so since they're aggressively expanding that particular arena, and they're giving that dude a lot of creative liberties and a lot of titles and a lot of money and a lot of budget and a lot of shows to handle. Dave Filoni, I believe that's his name. There's got to be a reason why he made this show, and there's got to be something in these characters' story that's going to be relevant for the future. I don't know what it is yet, but like I said, I mean, he created the Clone Wars, and the Clone Wars, they created the new character Ahsoka Tano, and now Ahsoka Tano appeared in The Mandalorian, and now it looks like Ahsoka is going to get her own show. So it would make sense that you created the Bad Batch for the Clone Wars, and then the Bad Batch got their own show, which it looked kind of predictable when you watched the last season of the Clone Wars. So I'm assuming there's got to be something more to this. There's got to be a plan, and so we'll see where it goes. So far, it's been pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Like I said, I haven't seen anything that I consider special enough for me to be like, okay, this is going to be the show that I review. It's like, I usually, I learned the hard way that you can't review multiple shows because it's usually a pain in the butt and it's a problem, especially if I'm doing weekly episodes. So if it's going to be the show that I pick, like, okay, this is the one that I'm reviewing, I need a little bit something more. Like I said, it was fun. It's enjoyable. It could still be just the show that I watch every week, but I don't know if it's going to be like a show that I watch every week, but I don't know if it's going to be one that I actually want to go in there and break down. You know what I'm saying? So fun. We'll see if it goes somewhere more. And if not, if I don't feel like by episode 3, there's something that's actually worth breaking down, I'll just probably do at the end of the season review or something, and I'll maybe go through the stuff that I feel it's going to be relevant for the future. I don't know. I'll see. I'll play it by ear. Maybe if I don't have any content next week, I'll be like, I gotta review something. I gotta do something. But I doubt it, because Castlevania is coming out this week. And so we'll see how that goes. Like I said, I'll play it by ear. Overall, again, answering the questions. A, is it worth your time? Yeah, it was fun. B, do you need to watch the Clone Wars in order to understand the show? Not really. It helps, but not really. And C, what grade would I give the first 2 episodes? I think it's a solid 8. Maybe the first episode was clearly better than the other one. And I actually went back and rewatched the final season of the Clone Wars. If they do something like that, it could be great. Because in the final season of the Clone Wars, I remember there was a lot that I liked, but I couldn't put my my finger on it. And they do a lot of one-shots, which is bizarre for an animated series, but they do like a whole fight sequence, which is a one-shot. But for those of you who don't know what a one-shot is, it's a scene where they don't do any cuts. And so an example is, have you seen? Well, you're probably not gonna have seen Magnolia. Magnolia's probably not a good example, but they did it in the last season of Game of Thrones. You know, when you're just following one character and then you go into another, and then you go into another, and then you go to another, but you don't do any cuts. Anyway, they did a few fight sequences of the Bad Batch like that, and it was fantastic. It looked great. So if they start doing more, because it felt like a really well choreographed action show. So if they do stuff like that with the show, then I'll be really excited. Like I said, I'll enjoy it, but I don't know if it's still going to be breakdown worthy. I don't know. Also, I have an issue doing like full summaries and breakdowns of good shows, because there's not much for me to complain about. It's like, they did here something and it was cool. That's it. Anyway, so yeah, I recommend it. It was fun. It was a fun adventure. We'll see if it goes somewhere else. We'll see if it actually changes the lore. I think it has to change the lore, or it has to add something, because Disney's trying to build something here, and I'm not exactly sure what. So far, the foundations are good enough. Like I said, the original 5 characters, the original Bad Batch, all great characters, all fun, all likable, and their interactions with each other even more likable, because it's the classic relationship like brothers who sometimes get irritated with each other, who sometimes don't like each other, but they work really well together. and then you add, the little curveball of the little girl and who kind of really throws them off their routine and their style and everything. So fun, enjoyable. I recommend it. I'm gonna keep watching it. So if there's anything you want to share about it, let me know. And I think that's it. That's a good place to stop. I managed to avoid spoiling anything major. I think. I hope. If not, whoops. Sorry. So that's it. As always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram and at Super Dario World. I'm going to be streaming on YouTube and on Twitch only Tuesday and Thursday around 2 p.m. ish if you want to join me. And the rest of the week, it's going to be wildcard stuff again, or pre-recorded stuff. We'll see how that goes. No, it will be, if I do something, it'll be pre-recorded. So there you go. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.